If Satoshi Nakamoto, the pseudonymous inventor of Bitcoin, was who I believed him to be, he was not going to acknowledge it. He probably wouldn't talk to me. And seeing him was going to mean sitting on a plane for 20 hours and driving another 8. But I needed to try to have a conversation with him, and it had to be face-to-face. Nakamoto had disappeared in the spring of 2011. I learned about him that summer when I wrote Wired's first feature article about Bitcoin, the internet-based currency that operated beyond the control of a government or bank. 12 years later, Bitcoin's creator remained unknown and his enormous fortune untouched. His anonymity and restraint were a confounding rebuttal to the acclaim and riches that would be his were he only to step out of the shadows. The modern history of science supplied no precedent for someone who conceived a revolutionary technology and brought it into the world without taking credit. Acolytes of Bitcoin, denied a flesh-and-blood human to venerate, had conferred on the pseudonym the halo of legend. In 2022, you could see Kanye West as he stepped from an Escalade in Beverly Hills wearing a Satoshi Nakamoto baseball hat. In Budapest, adherents had unveiled the first statue of Nakamoto, a depiction in bronze of a hooded, spectral figure. In the Vanuatu archipelago in the South Pacific Ocean, real estate developers sold shares in a utopian paradise named Satoshi Island. A trio of libertarians bought a decommissioned cruise ship, christened it the MS Satoshi, and recruited settlers for the world's first sovereign Bitcoin-powered society. More than one fellow technologist lobbied for Satoshi Nakamoto to receive a Nobel Prize. But the riddle of Nakamoto's identity stubbornly defied solution. Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, among others, speculated about it. Obsessed Nakamoto hunters strove to unearth new clues or remix existing ones in a more convincing way. By this point, more than 100 different suspects had been fingered. The intrigue transcended technology. In a world where the internet shone a pervasive light into every corner, there were vanishingly few unanswered questions of this kind. We'd learned who Bob Woodward's secret source was. We finally knew the proof of Fermat's last theorem. We'd been informed that Thomas Pynchon likely copped his bagels at Zabar's. When I first set out to write about Nakamoto, I couldn't have foreseen that more than a decade later his identity would be the last big mystery. It would have been still more ludicrous to imagine that the ghost behind the world's first cryptocurrency and the drive to decipher him would bring with them lawsuits, a car chase, a bounty, a $75 billion fortune, extortion attempts, death threats, a SWAT team, a suicide, a fugitive arms dealer, a serial forger, a hidden society of paranoiacs known only by pseudonyms, a big-hearted genius trapped by disease in his own body, a nuclear bunker in Europe, frozen corpses in the Arizona desert, and a British spy in a locked duffel bag. Prior attempts to unmask Nakamoto had failed, sometimes spectacularly. Even 60 Minutes, with untold resources and a deep bench of seasoned investigative journalists, had thrown up its hands and declared the challenge mission impossible. Yet now, against all odds, I believed I had cracked it. I was nervous about what this might mean. The Bitcoin world was hostile toward projects like mine. But that wasn't my main concern. When I'd locked in on Nakamoto's real identity, I'd been surprised that he wasn't a usual suspect. This was someone who'd gone to great lengths to be unfindable. And what I learned about him was disturbing. He was nothing like how people had imagined Satoshi Nakamoto. He'd repeatedly described himself as dangerous. He had guns. Before I flew around the world to meet him, I needed to be certain that I knew where he was. He owned at least 4 properties on 2 continents. I'd initially thought he was hiding out in a remote part of Hawaii's Big Island. More recently, I'd come to believe that he lived on the east coast of Australia, in a small beach community north of Brisbane. It was dawning on me that I'd have to hire private investigators to surveil the property and confirm his presence.